Hello, my name is Reed Silverne, and the name of the show is Fed Pride. The reason it's called Fed Pride is because I'm a federal worker and I'm proud of it. Nothing that I'm about to say has been cleared by my agency or cleared through the public affairs officer of my agency or any other agency of the federal government. And one of the reasons nothing has been cleared is because even I don't know what I'm about to say. I've just driven 500 miles from California. I had occasion to go to California for the last 2 weeks, and unlike a normal show, usually I have a bunch of documents in front of me, and I have a bunch of articles, usually about federal issues, and today I don't. So today I'm going to discuss a couple subjects, and among the subjects I'm going to discuss are a couple that I haven't talked about yet, and they touch on but are not really centered on the whitewater problems that the Clintons have been having and that the Republicans have been making quite a big deal about. First thing I'd like to talk about is the Filegate issue, and that is a situation where it has come out in the last week or so that the Clinton administration collected 300 to 400 files, FBI files, on people who had access to the White House before the Clinton administration took office. And apparently these were asked for from the FBI in December of 1993, 6, 7, 8 months after the Clinton administration had taken office. Now, earlier there had been a flap over what we now call Travelgate, which is a situation where they tried to fire and successfully fired the head of the travel office within the White House staff and almost everybody that worked for the guy. And they really ran this guy through the ringer. His name was Billy Dale. And that this should happen to a federal worker, of course, is a terrible situation. And basically he was accused of basically rigging the books and making profits or not properly issuing the tickets, and he was accused basically by a friend of Bill's and Hillary's named Mr. Thomasis, whose wife Susan was very, very close to Hillary Clinton. And the Thomases apparently had their own travel business and were hoping to get the travel business from the White House. So they went after this guy with blood in their eyes. They accused him of everything in the book. They actually got him pulled before a grand jury, and he was indicted, and he was eventually acquitted of any wrongdoing and acquitted of all the charges that were against him. And now there's a suit going on between a civil suit between him and the Thomases, and apparently I guess a suit between him and the Clintons. I'm not sure about that. That's kind of gone through. Now, in the course of that, the Clinton administration had gone to the FBI and tried to get the goods or got this guy, Billy Dale, investigated, or Mr. Dale investigated. And in the course of that, they found that the FBI had basically been mistreated and been asked to give things that they really shouldn't have been, and they supposedly set up an entire procedure that would prevent the Clinton administration from asking for and getting files on people that really wasn't proper or that may have been politically motivated. And the person who supposedly put this new procedure together was Bernard Nussbaum, and apparently the documents that requested the files from the FBI for these 300 or 400 people were signed by Nussbaum. Now, even though it was signed by Nussbaum, they're blaming it on, let's see, a guy named Anthony Martseca, who was a loaner from the Pentagon and a military officer, and who they kind of presented as being just a minor bureaucrat who just put forward a snafu and just kind of screwed up, and instead of asking for all the files from the current people that worked there so that they could update them, he asked for all the files from the people that used to work at the White House, and whether that's true or not is really in question, and a lot of people doubt that. But we'll find out because the Congress is just investigating this thing to death. Now, what does this have to do with the federal workers? This has a lot. because it basically, what it seems to be, is a violation of the Privacy Act of 1974. And any federal worker who works for the government can take a look at his request for leave and turn it around and take a look at the back, and in it will be a whole little explanation of what is the Privacy Act, and that this information on your leave or your performance evaluations on just about everything that you're going to see in your career that deals with you and your private information is protected by the Privacy Act of 1974, and basically says that they can't release it to the wrong hands or to people who don't have a right to see it without authorization, and that only people who need to see this information should get to see it. And for instance, if there's a court case or something like that, and they have to find out whether you were taking leave on a certain day, they're not supposed to be able to take your leave statement and give it to the other guy's lawyer or whatever. And that's basically what the Privacy Act is all about. And apparently this may have been a violation of the Privacy Act, and we'll find out more as the Congress gets on this and takes a look at this. And one good thing may come out of this, and they're talking now about passing a law, or Congress is going to get together and pass a law that says that they can't release FBI files on federal workers without their actual permission. Now, whether this is actually going to pass, I don't know, because Republicans in the past have been quite as guilty of handing out private information for political purposes as the Clinton administration is being accused of now. Basically, the last year of the Bush administration, somebody went out there and went through Clinton's passport records to see whether he went to Russia and what he was doing in Russia and so on and so forth. And that was a very big flap, and apparently there was an investigation where they find out that actual wrongdoing wasn't done, but that was improper, and that they shouldn't have gone through for political reasons a person's passport records, and that records within the federal government on people, either federal workers or even non-federal workers, should be covered under the Privacy Act or other acts, and should be kept private and only seen by people who have a reason to see those documents. So there might be a silver lining to what is otherwise a grim cloud, and I'm trying to stay away from all the bickering and the partisan politics that's going on around Whitewater and around the Travelgate, which of course is a federal worker issue, since federal workers seem to have been tarnished with a very broad brush, and of course now this files. Apparently there are 300 to 400 people. Some of them may have been as lowly as janitors and people who clean the toilets, and as high up as James Baker, who was at one point a chief of staff and a secretary of state. So we'll see what happens, and I'm not sure how that's going to come out. But if it does come out that they can't release records like that without your permission, I think that would be a good thing. So we'll see whether that occurs or not. And if it does occur and somebody does try to put it and create a bill, I would support that bill, and I don't know whether you would or not. But I think most federal workers would like to see their information remain private and not releasable without the knowledge of the person, because who knows who's really getting this stuff. One of the things that I kind of cringe about is that we're going to find out is requests for data, which everybody is now saying is very, very unusual and has only happened here in the Clinton administration, may very well just be the usual run-of-the-mill stuff. And that would really be sad if that's true. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised personally if that does turn out to be true, and that kind of stuff has been passed around various agencies of the federal government since the beginning of time. And whether that's true or not remains to be seen. Now, the Republicans have issued out the Whitewater report. And it actually hasn't been issued out, but it's been leaked to the press, so I guess that's just about the same thing. And the New York Times has printed up all the charges, most of which are basically that Hillary Clinton and all of her friends had access to all these documents and tried not to give them up. And whether that's true or not, the Democrats are going to come up with a minority report that basically says, no, you're misinterpreting all these things. The Republicans are going to try to send referrals to Kenneth Starr to all of Hillary Clinton's close friends and say, look, they lied, they lied. But in fact, they really didn't find much of anything. But what's going on in Arkansas is kind of important. I'm not sure that's the kind of message and that's the kind of result that the Republicans really want. Because the basis of the Republican program is that the state government should be trusted with your money, not the federal government. And that right now we pass these federal taxes up to the federal government, and they grant these rights and these privileges and these entitlements down through the states, through the counties, and out to the people. In some cases, like unemployment and various other things, and welfare. And in other cases, it goes directly to the people through Medicare, for instance. And the Republicans want to take a lot of these programs and want to pass them on to the states because we have state governments that are close to the people and that really should be trusted. And of course, now we have Whitewater. And who's pushing Whitewater? Of course, the Republicans. And they've gotten the most capable, most competent lawyer to go down there and investigate the government of Arkansas. And of course, Arkansas is a small southern state and a relatively poor southern state dominated by a few major economic interests. This is not a secret. Tyson Chicken among them. And boy, you know what they found out? And this is just a shock and a surprise to everyone, that the government of the state of Arkansas is pretty darn corrupt. And I'm personally shocked because I always thought that every southern governor and every southern state legislature and all the bankers and all the big businessmen and all these state governments and who were in bed with all the state governments were completely honest and forthright. I never thought that there could possibly be collusion, that people could possibly be taking advantage of their position and their positions of being close to high officials in state government. But as a matter of fact, it's true. And they've proven it by convicting a number of people. The most important, of course, is the governor of the state, the present governor of the state of Arkansas, whose name is Jim Guy Tucker. And Jim Guy Tucker was accused of setting up a $300,000 loan, and in fact many loans through a corrupt loan broker. These are federally backed loans and have personally benefiting from this loan. And apparently this happened. He was in bed apparently with two husband and wife team who had a bunch of businesses, but who also had a little savings and loan called Madison Guarantee. And boy, they convicted all three of them. And they convicted him on many counts. And apparently there's a paper trail from beginning to end that didn't actually include the Clintons themselves, that showed that these loans were taken and that the basis of these loans were fraudulent and that they weren't used for the purposes that they were stated on the federal applications, and that they were instead used to benefit the parties. And that apparently happened, and that's really a situation. But of course, what does it say? I mean, is there any other state in the nation that's going to stand up to that kind of scrutiny? Is there any other state where the bankers like Keating, who was tremendous influence and basically owned a senator in California, that's a much larger and more experienced and supposedly more sophisticated state, didn't own a senator or two, Senator Cranston? And he gave $900,000 in campaign contributions to one of the senators, and apparently got tremendous benefit with the state banking commission not really going into his finances as much as they should. And how many state governments are there? How many state governments have these potential scandals? And the main reason is because, boy, the powerful really do know each other. And not only do they know each other, they help each other. And I think that that's a tremendous surprise, and everybody should be shocked and horrified to find out that, especially at the local level, that powerful people are taking advantage of their influence with local government. And there's another case that's about to start, another trial, and that's the next step. And those are two bankers who apparently were caught giving the Clinton administration or the Clinton gubernatorial campaign contributions worth $13,000, and they phonied up vouchers so that their banks would pay them back when they weren't supposed to get them. So basically, they defrauded their bank, they defrauded the system, and apparently they gave these campaign contributions to the state governor. And of course, they were appointed to high offices. Now, is that limited just to Democratic administration? Absolutely not. The governor of Arizona, Fife Symington, was just indicted, and he was indicted for having apparent false federal loan documents. And a very, very similar situation to the people that controlled Madison Guaranty and Hale and his bunch in the previous case. So what exactly happened over there? Well, he was so influential that he was able to borrow $10 million, or actually more like $11 million from a bunch of pension funds for a series of real estate development projects. And these development projects, first of all, they were already collateral on other loans, so he had to actually borrow the money on his own signature and say that he himself had the assets and the funds to back up these loans. And there was a situation where there was a loan broker involved, and in these kind of loans, there's supposed to be actually absolutely no money going to any of the principals involved, and in fact that there may have been money that was given out to the loan broker and commissions paid back, when in fact just the pension fund itself is supposed to pay the loan broker so that he doesn't have a collusive situation with the person who wants the loan, so that they don't give out a loan that's too risky or that's not going to get paid back. And sure enough, Fife Symington gets elected, and he got elected on the basis that he was a good businessman. And a few months later, he declares in another set of documents that instead of being $12 million ahead or in the black, he's actually $10 or $11 million in the red. And that all these projects that he had valued at this high amount that were assets were actually liabilities. And that all happened in 6 months. So he's been investigated by the federal government. He was just indicted. So what we're seeing over here is not just Democratic administration or Republican administration, but this idea that the state governments, which are so close to the people and they can handle all these federal programs so much better than the federal government, my God, they might just have corrupt state governments out there. And of course, the Republicans are walking into that because they themselves are so intent on getting to the bottom of the corruption in Arkansas that they're missing the point that all 50 states could get the same treatment, and maybe they should get the same treatment, because maybe white-collar criminals should be hunted down. I'm not sure. But there is a point there that there is conscious or unconscious collusion within people that know each other, that trust each other, and that have power, either economic or political power. And that's just a natural situation. I'm not surprised or shocked or horrified about it. That happens everywhere. Sometimes these people get beyond the law. Usually they write the law themselves, so there is no law to get beyond, and there really shouldn't be. Apparently, there is definitely a law against lying on any document that's backed up by federal funds or that has a federal loan guarantee. So if you have a mortgage or if you have some kind of document like that, you darn well better tell the truth, because if you don't, and Kenneth Starr is on your tail, he's going to have you thrown in jail. And I can't say that I have a problem with that, because I don't. It's just that maybe they might start going after some of the other states, and let's see how close to the people these state governments really are. Certainly Arizona doesn't seem to be that close to the people, because anybody that's close to Fife Symington may or may not do okay. Apparently, at least those pension funds that were close to Fife Symington came out with nothing, and that's exactly what they got. He did, however, apparently make a deal with all of his other creditors, and he managed to handle $10 million worth of debt, and he discharged him for $30,000. Now, I wonder if he wasn't governor, whether anybody else would have been able to find that situation. And that leads me to the next thing, and that is the other side of Whitewater. And the Republicans have received some criticism as well as handed it out when it came out that D'Amato, who's the head of the Senate committee that's investigating Whitewater, was found that he had made a deal with a broker. And he got to the broker and he said to the broker, you know, I'd like to make some money. The broker said, well, why don't you open an account with me? Let's see what can happen. And naturally, a senator is so powerful and deals with so much, especially D'Amato, because he's on the Judiciary Committee that deals with the laws on banking and the laws regulating just about everything, all finances. He's a nice guy to have on your side. If you own a brokerage agency or a bank or have interest in the finance industry or anything else. So sure enough, an IPO came up. I forgot the name of the specific IPO. I don't have it in front of me. And they put $100,000 from D'Amato's account, and I'm not absolutely sure whether he had that money in there, whether that was loaned to him. I don't know the fact on that, but they got him stock before the opening of the official opening of the stock, and usually that's reserved only for the largest clients and only in proportion to the size of their accounts. And he got a portion of this IPO that was vastly out of proportion with his account. You know, accounts that were worth millions, multi-millionaires didn't get into this IPO as deep as D'Amato did. And without telling D'Amato, just on a blind account, they bought these shares the day before it opened. It opened and went up 30%, and D'Amato made a profit of $37,000 in one day. And of course, Hillary Clinton was very much criticized because the chief finance officer, or a high mucky-muck in Tyson Foods, which is probably one of the largest companies in all Arkansas, was handling the commodities account for Hillary Clinton, and they turned $1,000 into $100,000 over a couple months. Well, what does this prove? I mean, it doesn't prove that Hillary Clinton did something wrong. It doesn't prove that D'Amato did something wrong, because technically both sets of transactions were completely legal and within the spirit of the law. Although the D'Amato thing, apparently there are some rules against favoring clients, some clients over others, and I'm not sure exactly what the legal implication is of that. But Hillary Clinton's transaction, which made her $100,000 and basically supplemented the Clinton's income for a couple years. He only makes $35,000 a year as governor, or when he was governor, and they were home free, just doing fine because of their friends. It just shows that there is a theory that the only people that make money and the market economy, and I absolutely support the market economy, I support the real entrepreneur, only favors the real meritocracy. Only the people that are the smartest, only the people that are the brightest are going to make money, because if you favor anybody else, or if you have favoritism, the whole system is going to break down, and your company is going to lose. Now, I don't know whether that brokerage company lost by having D'Amato on its side, whether Tyson's Food lost because Hillary Clinton, the wife of the governor of Arkansas, really loved them. But the fact of the matter is that you can make money, and you can make very, very good money without being smarter than the next guy, and without being brighter than the next guy, and without being brilliant in anything. And that is how the world really works. And it really doesn't work where everybody who is absolutely the smartest and the brightest and the best is always going to get to the top for that reason alone. And that contacts, friends, power, money actually does make a difference. And starting 3 leagues ahead actually results very, very often in finishing first. And that is a real problem. I'll talk about that more in other shows. I really appreciate anybody who watched, that they watched. And I will be here next week to do Fed Pride. And the reason this show is called Fed Pride is because I'm a federal worker, and I'm proud of it. And I will be talking more about federal issues next week. Thank you very much.